Right. So let's start it. hmm Let's say my fear of public speaking, right? So you're about to go down on stage and you feel anxiety. The use or the default state of someone who doesn't want to have the experience is just trying to figure it out. One, so you in your advance don't worry about the experience. I mean, the anxiety is kind of just a mere thought of what you have to do. Then once you feel the butterflies, you're with them, right? You contract, your mind contract around with your conversation with yourself is doesn't have big one. It's like what I am this person is just kind of like I can see people do this all the time. They are relaxed, I'm happy. No way, man, and then you're talking to yourself, not noticing because your thoughts just come behind you and so like that. Yes, they can, and they seem to be you right, definitive thought that immersed in its consciousness. And most people realize that there's no alternative. Look at the rule book for how to operate the human mind, right? There's no place, no more education where we are also indicated that there's an alternative here, and so you get kind of stumble out to adulthood. While last summer we always have a mind we have and that place there's the only thing we can do to read upright our framework is to just add your content. We can read books, we can develop interest, but there's nothing at the sort of root level of our emotional and cognitive life can change. If you feel anxiety, then actually a place from which you can just feel it, right? And be actually indifferent to it or anything else you could be feeling. You just notice the unpleasant sensation when you first encounter anxiety, even if that unpleasant is so close to excitement in its actual physiology. The real difference between excitement and anxiety is more or less just deforming. It's the story of you think yourself, you felt these tinkles and this, silly adrenaline response right before you're about to go on a roller coaster. That part of why you're going on a roller coaster you had experienced, but right in fact you feel that way when you're about to have an interview that you're about to walk on stage. That's intolerable, right? So just dropping back and realizing the power of framing is again this is skill that is further started or time nominate or learning it, this good out. Most of what people care about can be thought of as a skill. I mean, maybe it's a skill. Not suffering is unnecessarily thing. It is a skill. Nothing your emotional life and regulating negative emotion is a skill. The moment you begin practicing mindfulness, which is just learning to pay close attention to the nature of your experience, not adding anything to your experience, just noticing, baseline to be focused in a way that is not reactive. You are not grasping a person to abortion doesn't quite why you just that is a story of just a story of thinking and you can it become more mindful of what interrupted that more you can reframe this and continue into yourself public story, but you can actually just engineer. You can change the code that you are running from moment to moment. You start off use a negative imagination where you think of other bad things that haven't happened to you, right? You're stuck in traffic, driving to the job that you don't like, and you're frustrated. And you can think of other things that could happen to you, right? That haven't. If what if that happened to you, you will consider your prayers answered. You could just be returned to this moment, and you could be the guy who today is going to find out you've got 2 months left, right? You have to the next 2 months spent just unwinding your worldly affairs, right? You're not gonna guy, right? But hasn't happened to you yet. It's just more thinking. But can have a profound effect. You can reframe the experience in a way that it doesn't actually change anything material about your circumstance, and it can let the light in. And there are many techniques like that are just a matter of invoking useful concepts skillfully. Um, because it is the advertisement, so I'm gonna wait. Next. So picture this, you're in an airplane and it beginning to bounce. And even those of those who aren't really afraid to fly can feel anxious in significant turbulence. Now, why do we feel anxious? Well, we have some thought that turbulence might be dangerous, right? That it makes it more likely a plane will crash. And of course, surely significant turbulence can cause a plane to crash. But it's, as we know from the crash statistics of plane crashes, is a very, very rare thing. So now, unless you are in that rare and horrible experience of being casually thrown around the cabin so to get injured, it's very likely that it's bouncing. It's not physically painful, right? You're not being harmed by this sensation, and in other context, you could subject yourself to even more violent bouncing and not being bothered about all you might go on some ride in the moment's park, which exerts great force on you bodily, and you do it because you're seeking an experience out. Now an airplane is totally unwelcome to you. You just take raw sensations may not prove the problem. It's what they pretend. It's your interpretation of them that worries you. There's at least two levels at which you can deal with this. First is to think conceptually about the nature of the problem and what you fear. Is it rational to worry that your plane will crash if you're experiencing turbulence? No, it isn't. The likelihood of dying in a plane crash is minuscule. Over the course of your journey, you should begin to worry as you leave the airport and get in Uber or taxi or drive yourself home in your own car. So if you understand that, if you understand that every moment in a plane is in fact safer than many moments you spend on the crowd, certainly safer than when you're walking as a Belgian fidgeting on your smartphone and stepping into the crosswalk. That's when your adrenaline should surge. Those are the moments where your sweat is begin beating up on your forehead, swing the plane, and it begins to bounce. It is in fact unreasonable to worry that the bouncing means much of anything. If you understand that, that absolutely can have an effect. They can become willing to just experience raw sensations, turbulence, and then you can cease to interpret the experience as a sign of actual danger. The other level which you can address is and they are totally compatible, moved, and recommend both of them is to become mindful of the feeling of anxiety itself. What is it? And what does it mean? Well, it's just sensation is just a pattern of energy in your body, and it actually doesn't mean anything at the level of raw sensation. You might have thought about it, and very probably much of your thinking is a moment's purpose toward trying to figure out how not to feel that way or how to let it worse. Please step out of your thoughts and just become willing to feel the raw sensation of anxiety as you just surrender your resistance to it. Just feel it as energy. It can lose its meaning. It can become very difficult to distinguish from what another framing could be a positive experience like excitement. How do you know the difference between being anxious about something about to happen and being excited? For the most part, it is thoughts you're thinking when you're feeling that arousal. There's a cognitive conceptual overlay on top of this raw feeling. You can constantly reframe things, or you can step out of it altogether and just feel the raw energy of this experience. And when you do that, anxiety can be like any other experience that has no meaning for you as a person. Really, it doesn't say anything about you. So, let's say you're resting, you have a rash on your elbow, and it's itching. Okay, that doesn't say anything about deep about you as a person. This has no physiological implications. It might be a unpleasant, it might be extraordinary unpleasant. Present into your sense of who you are. Deepest way to respond to anxiety. And again, I'm not saying that there are some no case in which drugs are valuable or even necessary. This may very well be, but for anxiety, it is more ordinary range. The way to respond to it is to become willing to feel it, to cease to interpret it as important, and to function in the midst of it. And then you pass anxiety, rises, falls, or any other emotion if you're not continually thinking the thoughts that make you anxious, as they can't stay around very long. And it is true of other unpleasant emotions like anger and sadness. They're continually resourced by our thoughts, and they're spending most of our time thinking without knowing that we are thinking. So mindfulness is in particular is a very good antidote. This problem with cooking, you can't apply it as an antidote. You can't be mindful of anxiety so that it will go away. Become willing to feel it, just let it burn bright in you, and discover that it doesn't matter. It simply comes and goes, and you can functional. Um, all right. Um, all right. So I'm done with this video. Okay. So bye, guys. Have a good day.